I'm going to go ahead and get this next committee started.
Sometimes the commission overrules us.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and call this Rules Committee meeting to order. We'll start with introductions, starting on this side. Pete.
Pete Peterson.
Austin Quinn Davidson. Big Suzanne LeBrance.
Felix Rivera.
Crystal Kennedy.
All right, so start with a report from the chair. So first, as I have been reporting to you all on a regular basis on our offices, so you don't have to worry about this one, Crystal, wherever you are. So we have decided, had a good meeting with Chris Schutte and others, and it looks like we will be going to single offices versus shared offices. They found a way to make it work so we're not in closets. And in short, I have also approved a plan for Daryl to move into the bank. And so he's going to be doing that in the next, in January or so, January, February time. And then after Daryl gets moved to the bank, then they'll be able to configure the new space for our offices. The goal is still to get this all done by first quarter. So just a quick update on that. Next is, I don't think everyone's gotten the invite yet, but I just want to let you guys know that next Tuesday, December 17th, the administration previewed it yesterday that they wanted to have a work session with us on SAP pay corrections. I didn't realize how timely that they wanted to do that. Their intent is to inform us before it becomes public news, because I guess it might become public news. So we have a work session planned on Tuesday at 3:30 to 4:30. I know. It's great.
I just set another appointment yesterday because I missed the one
too.
Yeah, I had to move one of my meetings too. So I think we're all doing it.
Is that at the library?
At the Assembly Chambers.
3:30 to 4:30?
Yep. So thanks everyone for your flexibility. I've already thrown Bill under the bus, so you guys can too. Next is I have been in works with leaders of the Anchorage Caucus, which for those of you who don't know, that's Representatives Fields and Representatives Rasmussen. And we are looking at doing a meeting the week of January 6th. We don't have the final date and time set yet, but likely it'll be one of those days on January 6th, starting at 1 o'clock, ending at 3:30. The intent is to spend 1 hour on the legislative program, which will be it'll be on the addendum, and it'll be up for a vote on the 17th, so on Tuesday. So that's another thing for everyone to read. And then, so that's part of the meeting is the legislative program, then part of the meeting is talking about homelessness. So that is just an FYI, be prepared for that meeting invite soon.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Can you help me to understand when you're booking assembly meetings, how you're prioritizing days? I'm curious about it because work sessions Fridays.
Mm-hmm.
If there's space on a Friday, that would be the preferred day because I think most people are prioritizing that.
Yep.
Is there a second day that is like, if the Friday doesn't work, we're going to try to put them on this day? I'm just thinking about next year and trying to plan.
Sure.
So I'd love to hear your thoughts about that.
Yep.
If there's any
I
way
can tell you how I work it.
we could figure out a way to have a first priority, second priority, and that way planning we can work with them.
Yep, so the way that I work it is, and this has been pretty traditional, is Friday first. Try to fill up Friday as much as I can, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., maybe even 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. I don't want to get you guys too upset. Then after Friday, I look at Thursday and I see if we have committee meetings on Thursday.
Okay.
If we do, I try to plan it for after a committee meeting on Thursday. If we don't have anything on Thursday, and then I look at Wednesday and see if we have committee meetings on Wednesday. If we do, then I plan for after those committee meetings. And traditionally, that's it. I don't think we ever go Tuesday or Monday. This upcoming Tuesday one's random, out of the ordinary.
Can I ask you, thanks for asking me that, Cameron, that's cool. Can I ask about the Tuesday, that's like a public meeting and
Yeah.
work session?
Oh, totally,
Okay.
yeah.
Of
Yeah.
course, it has to be, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thanks.
Nothing.
Good
I'll
question.
just talk about it.
And then last thing in report from the chair, just want to let folks know, I'm still working with the clerk to figure out, to set up a meeting with the Matsu Mayor. I don't know if we've heard anything back. Yeah, so little lag in communication there, but that's okay. Just to continue on some of the discussions and goals that we talked about at the last joint Matsu Assembly meeting, Anchorage Assembly meeting. Okay, that is it from report from the chair. Anything else? Any other questions by Cameron's or anything? Okay, then we'll go ahead and move on to pending business. I will start on this one, and then I'll start with you, Crystal, and then go around. So first is, as part of my work with the Complete Counts Commission, we have decided to hold a convening on February 3rd, tentatively right now set for the ASD Administration Building at 5:30 p.m. And this is basically to recruit, inform, talk about the census, recruit census champions among a lot of the different groups in our community. Then next, I've been talking to this at Community Council, so Meg knows about this, and I don't know if, just close your ears. So Midtown Congestion Relief. So on this subject, as we heard, Dow and the state DOT make a request for a resolution when they presented to us. So I've been telling Midtown Community Councils that this is a request that's been made and that they should get resolutions to us in advance of us making our own resolution. So timeline-wise, I'm thinking sort of January, February for us to make our resolution to DOT and Dow on the Midtown Congestion Relief. January, Midtown Congestion Relief. And so January, February timeframe. There's already a lot of work being done in the Rogers Park Community Council to form up a resolution. Geneva Woods has also done their own resolution. And they're trying to get that resolution passed by the Tudor Area Community Council. And then a lot of different community councils that are close to the project or affected by the next step of the project, which is through Fairview. A lot of them are looking to Rogers Park to figure out how to move forward with their own resolutions. So there's just an FYI that this is probably going to blow up in January and February, and just to be ready for it.
Can I comment on that?
Yeah.
The MTP 2040, Metropolitan Transportation Plan, it's a 20-year plan, but it's updated every 4 or 5 years. And it will be released for public comment probably right after our Thursday meeting, so 10 days roughly.
Yeah.
For a little more than 30 days actually. I'm trying to think actually. No, I'm sorry. They expect to release it January 1-ish and give 45 days. And we're still working on the schedule. We'll figure this out next Thursday, but so it sounds like that's okay. I want to make sure, but whatever comments you have, what are you commenting to? You can to the consultants and so on, but you want to comment to the plan essentially. So this is the plan. We expect this. And it sounds like the timing's good actually. It's just working on it.
Okay. Yes, Suzanne.
John, what was the name of the plan?
The Metropolitan Transportation Plan 2040, but no one calls it that. It's an MTP 2040.
Yeah. And
Is this related to Midtown Congestion Relief?
So,
or beyond that?
sort of. So Midtown Congestion Relief is in MTP and the STIP, right?
Okay.
So they're all sort of all played together.
Barbara, can I ask a question that sort of relates to this?
Yeah.
I know Desiree and I put on the training like an AMATS thing, but I feel like this whole STIP, TIP, NTP, the sort of acronym. Yeah,
Where's Fred?
If we could, yeah, where is Fred?
channeled.
I hope he's there for the Christmas party. Yeah, it just feels like it's confusing for me, and I've been here for a year and a half, so.
Through the chair, do you know if it's on an agenda yet? If you've got a schedule, I can look to see if we have it.
I don't-
Or I can give her an email and say, let's move it up.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't even know, are we having an AMAT? So we talked about doing a training for like CIP and how those projects are selected. But then we're like, oh, let's throw AMATs in there. But I truthfully don't even entirely understand AMATs. So I don't even know how that's all related. But then it's like there's the TIP and the MTP. So I don't even know what to ask for because I don't understand any of it. Desiree probably doesn't either. So someone who understands that, Weddleton, Felix, someone else?
My instinct, and John, you can step in after, is we should probably separate CIP and do that in its own, and then
Okay.
I think AMATS, MTP, STIP, TIP all go together.
Okay, great. AMATs, MTP, STIP, okay, and TIP.
And do you want me to send an email to Desiree and you that for the training task force that
Sure.
is on the agenda?
If you have time to do that over there, I could also do it now if you want me to, but if
Yeah,
you're
either one.
okay.
And
If
STIP
you have
is
time, go for it.
State's
That's-
Transportation Improvement Plan.
Yeah,
That's-
and then the TIP is
yeah,
the
they
local
change
one.
it.
2 points for Suzanne.
Not quite.
Oh!
STP is the long range.
Sure.
The TIP is, what are we doing in the next 4 or 5 years? So you have to be in the MTP, you pull from that for your TIP. The STIP is the state version, and their projects are supposed to be in our MTP and also our TIP.
And I do know the STIP changes depending on the administration at the state level, and stuff can be in the STIP and move forward, but then go send
But they're not supposed to put it in there for Anchorage, if it's in Anchorage, it should be in our.
Sounds like we have a
MTP.
volunteer presenter.
HR people, no, I mean, Craig Lyon runs Anchorage.
Right, yeah, we'll get it, okay. Will you include that Craig Lyon runs AMATs, and maybe include Chris Schutte or something?
That's a great idea.
Look at that.
Awesome. Anything else on the Midtown Congestion Relief resolution? Just be aware it's going to blow up. Okay, great. Thanks. Join us again. All right, that's it for me. Let's go ahead and start with you, Crystal.
Okay, thanks. Probably the big thing, and John can weigh in on this too, is just that the Community and Economic Development Committee is getting ready to look at its processes for how we go about reviewing and then recommending marijuana licenses. So that we figured that it was probably a good idea to have a bit of a briefing on exactly what the clerk's office does to go, their process, what an applicant kind of goes through. So we were hoping that we could start off with a work session about that. And then as we get through that, as people have maybe comments and suggestions about how to make that process better, either on our part or even for the applicant's part for that matter, then we could start to maybe formulate some more regulations or guidelines for how we go about doing that and bringing those things to the actual assembly. So anyway, we're kind of asking for another work session, another Friday all-day event or whatnot. Anyway, so anyway, are we okay with that, or is there
Yeah, I
anything
think our
else?
first CEDC meeting of January, we have on the agenda, kind of looking at just a list. Just so if you got any ideas, just, good, bad, whatever, I've kept a list over the years, and here's some things maybe to tweak, and some I don't think I support, but they're thoughts, they're worth kicking around, and I would hope we get some from the industry too, what are they tripping over, just kind of work through it. It's been a couple of years, just kind of see where we need to improve it. I think we've certainly learned recently, there's lots of little things.
Yeah. Dean.
Oh, thanks. So just for timing, we want to sort of get all these changes in and pass them before the renewal process starts in May. So we have a few months to do so. The renewal notices are sent to businesses beginning of May.
Okay. Very Not much,
Months
a little. Meg?
Thank you. One thing I raised yesterday, and I guess I'd like to know if it would be useful, is not only what does the clerk's office do, but should we go through an application at a work session like we go through it at CEDC? Because that conversation and the packet we go through is different. And so if that would maybe help answer questions about the process even, that then maybe we don't have to take up, or it might, I don't know, but we would only want to do that if there was interest. I mean, it takes about, I don't know, 15 to 20 minutes to go through an application if there's anything
For meetings,
concerning.
at our meetings.
Yeah.
That's
Well-
pretty typical. If an issue comes up,
But that also means you do pre-reading for the meeting, right? And I know some of y'all do because you
so
come with
having,
questions.
we come and read it, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Having read it, but when we bring it up, I usually figure I budget half an hour, I guess. But it can blow over if there's an issue.
Well, and I'd be happy to, as part of that, kind of talk about how I chunk up the application, because it's a couple hundred pages, and how I attack it, so that it's not a long endeavor.
Sure.
But if that's helpful, then I think it will inform the further discussion about what we want to look for, especially changes in process. Because sometimes
Well-
I feel like maybe it's just a demystification of what we're doing at CEDC.
Well, and that's why I said what the work session should be is to have Mandy basically take an application and show us how she works through that, how an applicant has to go through that. So you get the picture of all the components to that. And a lot of those applications are well over 150 pages. So there is a lot to talk about just in terms of what an application is.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, just let the clerk know and we can get that scheduled. Suzanne?
Thanks, Felix. Actually, on that point about the packets that you get for the CEDC, that was very helpful when I learned that there was additional information that was discussed and how the applications were being handled before the Tuesday meeting. So I think that's helpful. But I wanted to comment just on the CEDC, and as you put together your agendas, I know I'm not on that committee, but John, when you came in for the last work session, we were starting a conversation or responding to some feedback from folks about the process when it comes to rezones and planning. And I know you've been involved in that part for years and helped develop those new signs. But I don't know if, there were some suggestions that came about from the discussion. I don't know if there's space on your agenda to maybe explore that further at some point, and how to make it easier for people
It was fun.
to be part of the process.
I'm sorry it was late when other things came up, but it's so common with rezones. It sounds like the issue is very same as we saw in the one on the Arm, and as people have expectations, and we talked to the planning department, can you write up, basically, like Matt was saying, these kinds of things, show us, and they are so thin, it would be nice, and I was actually thinking on the way over here this morning, who's the guy who helped us with the great choice? He wants
Matt
to
Farina.
Matt, get him to write it, because someone just needs to write something up, to say, here's how it goes. So I might work with him, 'cause he's looking for more involvement. He's
Well,
pretty good.
or if I could add, to the extent we get someone whose job at the assembly, I want to ask about that. How are we going to deal with the 2020 money, and what are we going to use it on for the assembly department? But part of that vision was to have someone better communicating with the public, and so maybe they work with planning to get the information and put it into a readable format. Or Matt volunteers too. That's great.
We want to help them. I wouldn't dump anything on the planning
Yeah.
department.
Yeah.
They did not get staff increases, and they're doing marijuana now. Just that alone.
Right.
It's
That's
a lot of
nuts.
work, and they had all their other work to do, so they're very thin right now.
Yeah. Thanks.
I have a meeting with Michelle McNulty in the new year to talk about process issues with planning, because I've flagged quite a few, and so I've done some volunteering as well. And so to the extent that I also have a staff member who's winding up her current project, so we can maybe tap into a little bit of that. I'd be happy to work on that, because I think it's important.
Patrick Doherty, who was a real opponent of the Jarman rezone, was actually very reasonable, very well spoken. He wrote up something. Here's the problems I see. So they haven't saved, but if you're making a team, you might get him on. He's done a lot of work, and he knows what he tripped over.
Thank you. Anything else, Crystal?
There was, and I forgot what it is already. And actually, I'll just mention, I guess, I had a constituent who wanted to have a different level of certification or licensing, if you will, for the particular kind of public transportation that he does. He is strictly a Eagle River to the airport shuttle. And so he's kind of outside of the chauffeuring, he's outside of the taxiing kind of a thing. So he was looking for something that would basically not make him have to pay as much of a fee as the taxi license did. So Dean kind of started working on some of that, so he's revisiting it right now, and so maybe we'll see something on that. But it's kind of in Dean's lap right now, so. But I'll just tell you that there's, that it's kind of in the works. So the other thing that I want to work on in the new year is going to be the whole issue about insurance for community councils. So it's not dead yet. I'm going to work
Good.
on it. So.
Thank you. All right. I want to note for the record, we've been joined by Mr. Dyson. So, Fred, we are on Assembly Member discussion on pending business. So, do you have anything you want to talk about?
Yeah, so on Tuesday, you'll see introduced a sales tax for dedicated just to public safety. Most of the bones of it mirrors what Bill Evans did a couple, 3 years ago. You probably remember me and John. And it, as drafted, it's for a 6-year period. Administration tells me it'll take a couple of years to get it in place. Produce round numbers, $30 million a year per percentage. I've suggested 3%. And it's can go the whole increment from more cops, more prosecutors, more lab, more parole supervision, more treatment, all the way through, and tries to identify where there are gaps and plugs in the line. I've got a really neat schematic about it that will help. But I really want you all, if you decide to put it on the ballot, to think about all the pieces. The rate, the exclusions. There's a lot of exclusions in what Evans did for basic stuff for people. The duration, so on. And just parenthetically, I've been meeting with some legislators who want to do a statewide sales tax. And the thing is, like if the state did 6%, they would do the collection and we would get 3%. For the state people, and Pete, you'll remember this, there's such a huge issue with all the unorganized communities that won't organize and pay their bills. And this will be an impetus for them to do it. So, I think it's a good shot. I'm not optimistic. It also puts half the income for property tax relief. So help to make it better, and very open to suggestions.
Thank you. Austin?
Yeah, thanks, Felix. Thanks, Fred. So I have a couple thoughts. One is, I like the idea, and I appreciate you bringing it up. I'm worried about getting folks to approve a sales tax without anyone who's telling that story, basically a campaign. So I'm just thinking, it's like the other sales taxes have failed.
Yep.
Of course, maybe they were more broad, and that's why, and this is focused. But I'm worried about, as we select what we put on the ballot, what do we think is most likely to pass? And so I guess we can have the discussion elsewhere, but just thinking through that, do you want to, go?
What Bears want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and people who have been more recently involved said we really did a good job on explaining it in town hall meetings and so on. Ethan and I are going to sit down and talk about that hopefully pretty soon. But you're exactly right. And I'm going to tell people, don't vote for this unless you really want to do something meaningful.
And you're going to get out there and you're going to tell the story. And
On crime.
Mm-hmm.
And there's huge plugs in the line that's where we're not doing the job we need to.
Mm-hmm. And then, can I?
Go ahead and then we'll get the queue.
Thanks.
Sure.
My second question is about the structure that you have. Do you have a floor where the sales tax starts applying, and do you have a ceiling? Because my concern with sales taxes generally is that they're fairly regressive. So, if you're taxing only up to $500, for instance, then you're not really capturing all that money in someone who makes $400,000 a year and buys a fancy car, right? Because they're only taxed $500 of it. Whereas the person who buys a secondhand car for $1,000, half of the value of what they bought is taxed. So, where did you think about that, and where did you put the floor and the ceiling?
Yeah, and apparently Bill and the team that worked with him on it did a lot of job. There's a list of maybe 20 items that are not taxed. It's everything in food, nuclear, work, SNAP, all kinds of medical stuff, transportation to and from, a whole bunch of things like that. And it's kind of amazing to me how convoluted it gets, on the commercial side. And it looks like the team that did a good job, and they seem to have addressed all that. I've told you more than I know.
Okay.
Thanks. Cameron?
Yeah, so I'm very interested in it as well, and so I guess I'm really interested in when you plan on bringing something forward that we can look at and understand more of the details involved. So I guess I'm just, and I can talk to you offline, but I'm.
So I understand it's going to be on the addendum, correct?
Yep, the whole package.
Is it okay? That's great. Thanks.
Today.
Yeah, today.
Can't get much better than that.
That's great. Good timing. Thank you.
Dean?
Yes, the documents will be available this afternoon for everybody to use. We're almost ready to submit. And if I may add, the exemptions that are typically in the sales tax, they're intended to reduce the regressive nature of the sales tax. So they're intended to exempt the typical and basic household items that every household needs. So lower income folks need those, won't be paying so much tax on regular items, nifty items. So that's explained some in the AM that accompanies his ordinance that you see this afternoon. And I think one other feature that from the Evans ordinance that is good that Mr. Dicey hadn't mentioned is it's in charters so that the sales tax is collected starting in July, and then the revenue sales tax from July to the end of the year is payable for the next year's budget, rather than trying to project sales tax revenue that's coming out of the budget on that. We take the previous 6 months sales tax and apply that to the following year's budget. It makes budgeting easier in terms of the tax revenue. So anyways, the AM that explains a lot of what Mr. Dyson wants to do and how the sales tax works out there this afternoon.
Thank you. Pete?
Can you put me back?
Excuse me. I was just going to make the members aware that AML is in the process of implementing an online sales tax, so that if Anchorage did in fact pass a sales tax, that would also be collected on all the items that are shipped into Anchorage from the lower 48, and that would be a significant number. I mean, just the number of UPS trucks I've seen in my neighborhood in the last week. I mean, it's hard to estimate how much is being bought online here, but it's a huge amount.
Thanks for reminding me.
Thank you. I want to note for the record, we've been joined by Mr. Constant. Suzanne?
Thanks, Felix. Fred, appreciate you spending time on this to bring it forward. I think it's an important discussion to have. And I guess one question I have is how would it fit with the alcohol tax if that was on the ballot, or if they both passed, assuming like both would be on the ballot, both would pass, how they work together. And I know this isn't the time we're necessarily discussing these things, but that's just one question along with the list of exemptions. I'm curious to look at those.
And if I may, it's a very important one, and maybe my first thing is we wouldn't put any additional on top, like my 3% on top of the 5 or 6. But yeah, good. Appreciate you raising that.
Thank you. Austin?
Oh, I was just going to add to what Dean said about a tax. I know that food and other things would be exempted, but I still have a question, which we'll see in the documents today, about where that floor is and where that ceiling is, because that does really matter. And then I appreciate Suzanne raising that too, and agree with Fred. I think I understood him to say, let's put the best one on there and not, no, okay, I misunderstood it, but that's what I think. So let's have a discussion about all the things and what we think the community wants most and what's most likely to pass and what provides the services that we're looking for and we think the community needs, and put that one on there. I'm not really interested in putting multiple taxes because I think that people will vote for one and not the other. They'll pick one that they like the most and they'll all fail.
Thank you. Meg?
Thank you. I am actually I have a lot of trepidation about any taxes on the ballot. I'm just going to put this out there because I wanted to have that community discussion for a while we figure out what the community wants most. So I have a lot of hesitation about any tax proposal at this point because I'm really worried that if we put a tax proposal on the ballot and it doesn't prevail, that we maybe missed a window to have a more broad discussion with the community, that we're going to exhaust them. So I just wanted to throw that out there. That's kind of where I'm sitting with it right now. I'm excited to read both of them specifically. I haven't cracked into my binder yet, but I will this weekend, and then have a lot of time to think about it moving forward. But I have a lot of hesitancy right now, which I never thought I would say I have hesitancy about taxes, but right this moment I have some hesitancy because I just don't want to see something fail and then kill another opportunity down the road where we could have maybe done some more public outreach.
Thank you. Suzanne? Sorry. Thank you. Anything else, Fred? Okay. You're next, Suzanne.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we're in this.
So on the pending business stuff, so first I wanted to mention that for the Stormwater Utility Advisory Commission, there are several people involved with LRSAs who apparently are applying. So I think maybe like 4 or so. We've had a lot of back and forth and some conversations, and that notice went out, some of you may have seen, through the FCC. So hopefully be approaching that 10 with all the slots filled. Felix and I have a pawn shop revision ordinance that should be introduced in January. We are working closely with Department of Law and APD and folks in the pawn industry. And so when the draft is introduced, it will reflect some of that feedback already integrated. There's a resolution on traffic and student walkability that's on the agenda and in our packets. And I just had wanted to mention that I know we talked about it originally like 3 months ago or so in a previous ASD meeting, but there was a really good community council discussion that happened in the interim and some other stuff. So that's why that was a little bit delayed. And then there's been a lot of discussion, as you all know, about Tobacco 21. And Austin, I don't know, or John, if you wanted to talk about that when it gets to you.
I think you should. You've been the one doing all the work.
Oh, well, I think I was the one who just happened to answer my phone first.
Sometimes that's how it goes.
You know, on that.
Lucky you.
It's okay. It's been educational. And just to give a quick overview, some of you are probably aware that there's a conflict between the state law and then what we passed at the local level, where we remove the penalty for minor in possession of tobacco. At the state level, in that code, it's a $500 penalty and mandatory court appearance, and if you're 18, your name is in court view, and there may also be some mandatory treatment or counseling required. So there's been a discussion somewhat behind the scenes with those of us who sponsored the AO, with feedback from the municipal attorney and dean, APD, and then a little bit of discussion too with the school district and what their policies are. Offhand, the increase in citations has been driven by, and this is still being explored, but right now the belief is that because of the prevalence of vaping, there have been calls from district personnel, to the SROs who have cited students, and a lot of those have been at, I believe, Eagle River, Chigiak part of town, Service and South as well. It's just a few of the high schools, and then I think Hanshu and a couple others. So still looking at that, looking at what ASD's practices in terms of discipline, and there have been some preliminary discussions to the chief is in favor of this, of putting it back into local code, but having a penalty that is focused on community service or education, or maybe having it in line with what ASD is doing. And Austin and I talked with Chris about putting this on the agenda for the Health Policy Committee with everybody there to figure out, as the policymaking body, what do we want to see happen, and how can we work with APD and ASD to make sure that we're not focusing energy and attention on penalizing the young people, but the ones who are providing the tobacco products to them. So.
And we were thinking of doing that February health policy meeting, right?
Yes.
Probably canceling since it's normally at the beginning of the month, it'll be beginning of January.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Fred?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot two things. We put to bed the issue with the pot shop near the Hope Center. I've been working with Mr. Sheely, and I believe John's going to have take up the issue on should we have in the code about separation distances. Complicated. I'm pretty sure I'm going to offend quite a few of my religious friends and so on. But I think we probably need to do more on thinking about those kind of establishes near where there's vulnerable people and that kind of protection. I don't know how to solve that. And the other issue is talking with Mr. Shooty, should we put more information on the title deed on real property? I put on flood zones of avalanche zones, but what kind of analysis of soils, who did the inspection, and what standard was it built to? I think government has a legitimate role of protecting people from things they're now well equipped to analyze the risks, and we'll get some pushback on that. The last thing I want to do, hopefully the deal on reconfiguring our seal will at least be well on the way before the school district is supposed to do their contest and stuff. Sorry, I forgot that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anything else, Suzanne?
I just wanted to add that the AML is having an If I Were Mayor essay contest, and information has been sent out to the schools.
For adults or kids?
Yeah.
How about all the candidates?
I was going to say, that's really funny. I was going to say it's just for sixth graders, but
We'll get some better.
Some of
We could see who's best.
Get some results.
that's hilarious. But Pete and I last year got to be on the panel to judge them, and there were some really, really touching and insightful entries. And some of these young people, their communities, are dealing with some really difficult, horrific stuff, and it was pretty remarkable how insightful some of those young folks are.
Thank you.
We'll get that information out to everybody.
Great, thanks. Chris?
So mine are all short term right now. I kind of cleaned the deck on the long projects for now. Madam Co-Chair and the Chair and I have drafted an amendment to the Ascent contract that you'll be seeing before us to the port management, that we have the consultants. So one more chunk, so we'd already appropriated funding, and the intent is to work with them to provide some outreach and communications to the statewide stakeholders to get the state and the feds on board with supporting port infrastructure. Coastal AML passed a resolution 49-1 that was drafted by the chair and the co-chair, and so that's going to be coming before us, hopefully on the addendum, but it might make it later on the table. And also on Tuesday, you'll see 2 resolutions honoring our sister city relationship. The school exchange at Sand Lake Elementary is happening on the 7th of January. And so I want to have something that we just passed quickly that can be handed to them at the school. And then also we have a delegation of Ainu people who are the first people of Japan, recently recognized in April, who are coming on an advanced mission to set up a big event in October. And so they're coming as well. So I want to have something drafted just to honor their first visit to us. And then the port, that's what I'm going to keep focusing on. And then I'm hoping that Mr. Dyson has picked up the Eagle River project, the high school, and is it happening?
Well, I was just asking, may I, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
I was just asking the chairman just a little bit ago, really what the process is.
And I could detail that.
Okay, because neither one of us had actually looked yet, and so anyway, if you know it off the top of your head, then I would say.
I do.
Yeah, thank you.
And if I might, the code provides for two paths. One is a petition and a payment by people addressed on the street who want to see change. Another would be a request from a government agency for the name change. And the resolution as written that I've seen is a request by us as a government agency to the administration to begin the process. So then what the process begins is they send out a public notice to everyone who's addressed on the streets, and they're given a public comment opportunity. And to the community council as well. The school already went to the community council, which was very impressive, and the students of the school. And then it goes through the various departments who analyze, is there a conflicting name, right? Is it going to cause confusion for APD in the 911 system, or is there a parallel name? Which all those questions have tentatively been answered by the students. There's another similarly named. APD has no problem with the name change. And so then the planning director just checks with all the department heads who have to do with anything. Then she, at this time, she makes a recommendation to the mayor. The mayor makes a proclamation if he determines it's in the interest, and then it's done.
Okay.
So that's the process.
I'm sorry, I misheard you. Yeah, I'm gonna introduce their,
Are you?
yeah.
Can we get that today?
I'll just have it for the table.
Okay, and I forwarded it to the municipal attorney. Dean didn't have the bandwidth. I just wanted to make sure that it had a legal
Yeah, I
review.
just got it yesterday.
Perfect. So, then that's good. That's everything I'm working on right now. Thank you for doing that. The kids are working hard.
Yeah.
No, thank you for your part.
Yeah. And so with that, again, I'll say it. The port.
Expect a tattoo in the near future. Meg.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Crystal?
Sorry, I just to finish the conversation about the resolution from Eagle River High School, is you all should have gotten a copy of that in your assembly email. It was sent from Danielle Lewis. So that's the document that we're basically working, or Fred is working on. So, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Meg?
Okay, thank you. I am sending out on Monday, just as a heads up, the permitted camp, sanctioned camp, commission and community council referral, and then I'm leaving town. The country, actually. But I am sending it out. I'm asking for responses by the end of February. I will put my own information on there as the point of contact, but I did want to give everyone that heads up. I will also have the clerk's office copied on it so that you all can get a copy of what is sent out. And I will put in the preface to it when it is sent out that I am unavailable until January 6th, but I don't presume everyone's going to jump on working on this right away. Community councils are kind of winding down for the year until they engage next year. I'm working on an autonomous vehicle ordinance for autonomous vehicles or camps.
Autonomous vehicles.
Oh, okay. Just thought I'd ask.
I'm already de facto on the camp questions.
Okay.
So whatever you need.
So, working on that. For the Health Policy Committee, I spoke with Mr. Weddleton. It'd be really great if we could have the Anchorage Safety Patrol come and talk about what it might take to expand their services, because we think that might be more than what we expect.
Can I say something quick? Mr.
Yeah,
Chair,
go
I
ahead.
have yet to send, I meant to send it to Mr. Weddleton, an amazing photograph of an Anchorage Safety Patrol van picking up south of Diamond. And so I was there, I was in shock. I got the pictures because I couldn't believe it. So I have it to send you, but the question of how to expand services, while they may need more money, could also be, depending on workloads, as simple as saying, we want your boundaries to expand, because the volume of people may not be so substantial, and so it's definitely worth investing in the question. Because I think they are actually now, at times, outside of their service area, providing their important service.
Yeah, so I think we just want to hear from them about what barriers they may have to expansions, or is it on an ad hoc basis or anything like that. In the new year, I'd really like to find ways to get the youth member engaged. I'm going to invite her in our January meetings if she'd like to sit right next to me and go through my binder with me. It would be really analog for her.
Has she been not coming?
Sorry. So,
Update.
Okay. So,
Too late, I'm thinking.
So unfortunately,
Okay.
the youth member had to resign for personal reasons. So the Youth Advisory Commission is currently going through.
What about the alternate?
So the alternate got a job on Tuesday, and she works on Tuesdays, every Tuesday.
Oh.
So we're going through to get one or potentially two new representatives.
Are they currently accepting applications for that, or?
The Youth Advisory Commission is working through that process.
Well,
but
I
yeah,
just met
that's
with some
usually
Boy
how they do
Scouts
it.
who were asking about how they could get more involved, and there were some of age, so I would forward
Great.
that on.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah.
They had some really good questions last night. They actually stumped me a few times.
I would bring that up at my training too, because I've never thought about that. That's a great idea.
Lastly, Dean and I are continuing to work on homelessness or homeless shelter regulations. It's moving along. It's big, it's slow, but we're continuing to plow along. So, and then I'll just be gone from next Wednesday until the January 3rd. I'm not responding to anything. So good.
All right, thank you. I'll let you know if Midtown's on fire.
I won't get the
message. Austin.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay. Shooty here? No. Chris and I have been talking about workforce housing and trying to create incentives for developments that are located near town centers and public transit. So that's just sort of in brainstorm. Chris and I have been talking about in planning or development services, wherever it's most appropriate, getting a case manager sort of position that could help developers, small businesses, and whoever really go through the permitting process. So as a liaison, a lot of times you have to get approval from different parts of those departments, and they are sometimes in conflict or not communicating well. I had my aide for the past year, I guess, work on a big project, which was interviewing about 20 small businesses and asking what's the biggest hurdle to getting started. Like, what is the city not doing well that we could do better? And again, we heard the permitting process is so confusing, and we don't know how to navigate it, and we were told one thing, and then it changed with the other person, the other department, and so we're trying to change that system and see if we can find a way to fund that kind of position. Yeah, maybe.
So I've been working with Bob Dole a little bit.
On a similar thing?
Very similar.
You want to join forces?
Sure, yeah,
Okay.
because I'm going to do a walkthrough on pulling a building permit, as well as a walkthrough as like I was a client on a building inspection.
When you have the community house perspective, right, you probably had to get some sort of...
No.
No? Okay, never mind. You just have your own perspective. Okay,
But-
we actually have a meeting set up, I think it's January 6th at noon. Okay, Shooty, so you can tell us if that works, and if not, we can
Okay.
reschedule.
It's a great idea.
You'll see before you something that Ms. Nordland from the Parks Foundation and Diana Rhodes brought to us that I think we might talk about on is it separately noticed?
It is, yeah.
Mr. Chair? Okay, so we'll wait for that, but this is something we all saw a month or two ago when we had the work session. I wanted to bring it to all of you and see if it's something we wanted to pass. What else? I got a little list here. Forrest and I have been talking for probably 6 or more months with some folks about the Eklutna Dam removal and then the hydro project and how that all works together, the mitigation that's required with the underlying agreement, and then also how we might be able to get some water in that Eklutna River earlier than what the process provides for. We're just curious if that's possible. So we asked Mr. Chair, the chair, to set a work session for January 10th. So you'll see that on the agenda. It's just to kind of engage the assembly. We've heard the Natural Resources Commission passed a resolution calling on us to encourage the process to move quicker. So we just want to hear from them and see what the scoop is. Title II, it's been going on and on forever. We're getting close, Hundy. I'm sort of interested in Title II process for assembly meetings and what comes before us, appropriation, money levels, a little bit of changing to process so we can get some public testimony at the beginning. Little proposal about late on the table and how late you can lay things on the table, depending on what the content is. If it's financial emergency or something we need to do ASAP, of course. If it's some complex thing that we're just hearing about on Tuesday and we're supposed to vote on, maybe not, unless all the members, well, I think 8 members agree. So anyway, there are a bunch of things in there. We're close. What happens, I think, when you do one of those big packages is then people go, oh, can you add this, and can you add that? And it's like we're kind of never catching up. So we're really trying. We're working with Becky on executive session, like a bunch of stuff. I'm sort of curious for the process for naming panels, and Chris gave me some insight into this, which was helpful. You know, the process, if you want to name something after a community member, you just come and basically ask to do that. And so I want to make sure that that is representative of our community, and that it's not just folks who are connected to the mayor's office or connected to us and who know us and can ask to get something named after their friend, and that it's truly representative of our community. So I know Cameron is interested in exploring that too. So Chris did say that he felt in his community it was, which is nice to hear. Alcohol tax, of course, and then Shayna Kilcoyne and I are meeting next week to go over the climate action plan and talk about what we need to do as a body to make any code changes that actually implement some of the goals laid out in the plan. So we're going to start that conversation.
Great, thank you. Pete?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We are in the process of trying to work on a resolution honoring Coach Chuck White. Passed away here recently, and that'll hopefully be on the agenda sometime in January. Also continuing to work on a resolution. Would have probably had this done earlier, but Dean's been swamped to list the trails where the trapping ban is in effect. And Tina Miller has continued to work getting her interactive map together, and she's made great progress. And so we're getting closer on that. So we're hoping to get that introduced and hopefully passed in January.
Thank you. John?
A few things. And Barbara, where are we on that quasi-judicial business?
Through the chair, the quasi-judicial rewrite is proceeding. Mandy Honest is taking the lead on it. Sadie, and I can't remember her last name, Dean's intern from last summer, got us a great start. Mandy actually is taking some time and has asked me if she could work on that next week. So she's going to take a day or so and do her updates, and then I think we'll be back before you. I think we've learned a lot about quasi-judicial. I actually will tell you that the quasi-judicial meeting on Tuesday night was the best one that I have ever been at in the last 7 years. So we're starting to figure it out. But one of the things that I would like to make sure is that we practice and know exactly what those are before we bring it before the body. There was a luck before you. What was the luck on the last meeting agenda? Or
the levy upon connection?
Yes.
Whew, acronyms. It was in Sand Lake, wasn't it? Yeah.
So interestingly, the luck is quasi-judicial. So my concern is that how do we separate those on your agenda? How do we process those differently? And so we want to really have some practices, go back to some agendas and do some rehearsals to make sure that, first of all, we don't screw it up and get it on the wrong place on your agenda. That's my biggest concern right now. But anyway, she should have another draft done by the end of next week.
Great. Okay. We put a lot of time in that, but it's very, very close. So it'd be nice to have. So that's, anyway, coming. Just real quick on the Megs and I guess Chris's autonomous vehicle thing. Just yesterday at the AMATS TAC meeting, there is a resolution being passed around that would be signed by the mayor, the AMATS, Craig Lyon, and there's approval of policy committee. I think it's coming to us at the policy committee meeting next Thursday. It'll be drawn out because they're going to be signed by people all over the state. But I didn't save a copy. I'll try to get that for you. Or you could email Craig Line. He distributed it. And you just see what's going on at that level. And at that policy committee, there is something, this ties in a bit with the Midtown Congestion Relief, but we have to get this Metropolitan Transportation Plan, 20-year plan, MTP 2040, done. We're a year late. We have until November of next year to get it approved by FHWA to get funding, federal funding. Okay, so there's a real deadline. So they're trying to figure out the schedule. So two things happen is through the AMAT system, it goes to the Technical Advisory Committee, then to the Policy Committee with lots of public comment. And we have an AMATS document. But we also adopt that document into our comprehensive plan. And that takes a separate track. The document goes to Planning and Zoning Commission and then to us, and it's adopted into the plan. So you have two separate things going on with this one plan. It's very inconvenient if those plans are different because you have one, the AMATS one says this is what we'll fund, and if the one that we adopt has some changes in it, it says this is what we will plan to. So the planning department will have to act on that one, but the funding may defer. So if we were to make big changes to it, we have some problems. So the plan that was presented yesterday was it would start in January, go through public comments, which is timely for the stuff you're working on, and then would go to the Planning Commission, go through their process, come to us, we would approve it as part of a comprehensive plan, and then it would come back into the AMATS realm and become the FHWA. At any of those stages, something could change. So we'd have two different plans. It's a bit of a problem. Plus, it puts us right at the deadline. And it's possible we would miss that deadline doing that. So what I proposed is, because we have that drop-dead deadline, is have it go just through the AMATS process, get sent to the FHWA, which would probably be August next year, and then it comes to us, and we look and adopt it as part of a comprehensive plan. Anyway, just know that's a fairly big thing, but the timing is critical because we're a year late, and it is something. If we have in there, if the one currently does not have the extension of Elmore through UMed. If that were to be added in the version that becomes part of a comprehensive plan, that's huge. If MCR is in which it is now, in the MTP 2040, it goes through, and we yank it out in the assembly, we have a real challenge. So these are some things to think about. And, we'll make some decision on the schedule Thursday.
Thank you. Cameron?
Yeah, most of what I want to talk about has already been hit, but just one resolution that Dean has in his long list is a stepping up initiative. It's essentially committing to a data-driven systems plan to reduce the number of people with mental illness in jails, and I can go more into that at a different time. But it's a national initiative that I want the body to consider signing on to. And then I did have one question because Dean wasn't here earlier. I guess I don't know in terms of the relevancy. The Salem Lake Community Council submitted two, what's the word I'm looking for? Two appeals to the current rezone that we talked about earlier. One of them was deemed invalid. One of them is pending and under a certain body, and Dean wasn't here earlier, and I don't know if it's the appropriate time, but I need to find out more about sort of the status of that and the date that will be resolved so that I can report back. So just he and I can have an offline conversation. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, we should talk right after this.
All right, thanks everyone. We're going to go ahead, go back. I'm going to start with you, Cameron, and then we'll do a quick on committees. So we're going to start on committees. We're going to start on this side and then go around. If there's any additional stuff.
I'm going to let Meg talk about homeless committee. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. John?
Well, I think we had that discussion of big
Yeah.
things at CDC and then at AMATS, that MTP in that process. kind of the big issue, right?
Okay, great, thanks. Pete?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the Ethics and Elections Committee meeting for December has been canceled since it's typically would be happening on Christmas Day, so we won't be there for that. But we're trying to organize a committee meeting for fairly early in January. And so I actually sent an email out to committee members recently to see if they were available. And since Forrest is out of state, we're waiting to hear back from him. But we're working to do on our Title 28 rewrite, which is the election laws. And so this will probably be an hour and a half to 2 hour committee meeting.
Okay. Yeah, sounds pretty hefty. Thank you. Austin?
For committees?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I think you guys.
nothing, I think covered.
Yeah. All right. Meg?
Thank you. So the Committee on Homelessness is not meeting this month. We'll meet next month, where we hope to take up the mobile intervention team discussion we had previously planned but been unable to have due to some scheduling issues. There's also talks of the body going down to visit Brother Francis Shelter. And what we'd like to do is schedule a concurrent committee meeting so we can kind of get into some of the things that we'll probably all want to know but may bog down the actual site tour. And then we'll also be taking up the Agnew-Beck report on the Oliva properties, probably though not till February likely. So that's kind of preview of what's to come.
Thank you. Chris?
As a note, that report should be released today.
Yeah.
So, the Enterprise and Utility Oversight Committee continues to dash forward on a number of topics. Ms. LaFrance and I are working both on the SWU, the AWU, port, solid waste. I think I'll just briefly go further on the port. In our conversations yesterday, we're looking to host in January a convening where we invite the port user group to come and give us their perspective on how we should implement the findings from the Ascent report, and let them tell us what means something out of this report. Let the administration respond to that at that meeting. It'll be a 2-hour conversation, which will hopefully raise up some areas of alignment that we can all keep our focus on, and can make some other items maybe clear for us as well. And so that message should be going out today, an invitation to the various groups. And all of that in the process, we're in discussions of, as many of you were here yesterday at the committee meeting, looking at the small user group that's been supporting the value engineering on how that might evolve going forward as the phases of the project shift and we move into other construction projects that aren't basically petroleum and cement. And so currently that group is dominated by petroleum and cement users, and it's likely that we need cargo users in that small group. And so that conversation is ongoing. And what that will hopefully do is build toward this conversation about making our Port Commission more of a statewide representative group, so that when we go making asks of statewide and national groups for funding, we pass the red face test and have actual representation from people who are asking for help from. So that's kind of that, Ms. LaFrance. Go ahead.
Thanks, Chris. I would just add, for enterprise and utility subjects, we'll be having AWU on the agenda, right, at some point for the hydrant issue.
Ah, yes, that should be February, right, Jason? The hydrant issue. Hydrants, AWW, the RCA filing, and
yeah, we probably will be able to provide an update. It won't be completed by February.
I think it was supposed to be November, and then Mark asked for it to be moved to February. So hopefully we'll get that conversation started. Thank you, Ms.
Thanks. And then I would just add for the Health Policy Committee, one other item is a resolution regarding state law and tobacco 21, and Ms. Pineda and Ms. Quinn Davis and I have talked a little bit about that, and so that's something we'll probably be bringing to the committee to discuss.
Thank you. Fred?
I think we have an audit committee meeting early next week. Basically going to finalize the plan for the next year. I've asked Mike to give us a little graph, and he's actually produced it, of what the site like workload they work through, because they have all these automatic, remember, then the big audit, and they look over their shoulder at that. So there's some times when their workload is less intense. And so always please feel free, if you think there's an area that we, with our audit capacity, ought to look at, then we'll try to slot that into the downsides in their prescribable. So it's a pretty rational process. And we could get a pretty good team over there and make it quite useful.
Thank you, Fred. Crystal?
I don't have anything to add to the community and economic development. But if I could, I will add that I am, if anybody wants to join me, I am meeting with Mike Chadwick and Lance Wilbur, Marilyn, anyway, to talk about what they've discovered over some of these high numbers in the intergovernmental charges part of the budget. So if anybody wants to join me, I think we're doing that next Wednesday at 3:30. So.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you for that invite. All right, so moving on, I want to thank everyone for that really good, robust discussion. We do have limited time left for all these other 10 items. So what I'm going to do is I am going to prioritize items 3, 8, and 9, and then after we're done with those 3, go back to the top. So, start with 3. So, as we've heard today, right, we're going to have multiple tax proposals for us to review. And who knows, maybe there'll be another one that slips in there, surprise, for us to review and vote on by either January 14th or January 28th to put on the ballot. I mean, that's our deadline, right? January 28th. I mean, maybe it's not exactly the 28th, but I don't know if it's the end of the month in January. But
currently, the last regular scheduled meeting is the 28th.
Right.
I can calculate and find out exactly what the last date. It might actually be like the 29th, so
okay.
I'll let you know.
So we don't have much leeway. That's
right.
The point of that. So with that in mind, and sort of keeping with the intent of getting input from our constituents before we decide to put stuff on the ballot, you know, we've been talking at these meetings for several months now about sort of the idea of new revenues. How do we have that discussion? Do we host town halls? When do we host those? And I know there are some sort of different views on it, so I want to bring it here. And I think today for me and for staff is really sort of like a go, no go. If we want to host town halls before we put stuff on the ballot, I am triggered and ready to move forward. I have a press release ready, locations, dates, times, get out on Tuesday, right? So I need the go, no go today on whether we want to do those town halls in January, or if it's a no go, then start thinking about them in April. I want to hear from everyone on this. So I'll start on this side. Crystal.
Well, my question was going to be, so do you have a pretty good structure for what that meeting looks like? And can you talk a little bit about how you would approach this?
Sure. So, it's my goal to really fine-tune the structure by the end of the month. I've been talking with the administration. I'll let you know what I've talked with them about. And then if we decide a go, then I would invite up to 2 other assembly members to work with me on really fine-tuning that structure. But in my discussions with the administration, it would be very similar, probably pared down version of the presentation that we received from the administration on different revenue options, and here's what it would look like, here's what it would raise below the tax cap, above the tax cap. Have that done by the administration, and then it would be sort of my hope, a joint effort between sort of the mayor and the assembly to then sort of talk about why are we even having this discussion in the first place, and really sort of just set the frame for why it is important for us to have this discussion. Because I think there are members of our community who maybe aren't up to speed on why we need to be doing this, right? And then after that, after we've had the presentation, set the frame, then sort of the Q&A and dialogue with members of the public. That's the basics of it. There's a lot more work to be done to sort of fine tune how that looks like.
I appreciate that. And so what kind of dates were you looking at?
So because we have one or two proposals set up for us to vote on the 14th, and assuming that we're going to vote on the 14th, I mean, we could always postpone, but I'm just making an assumption, right, that we're going to vote on the 14th, then we would be looking at the week prior. It was 2 weeks before that.
Okay, so like the 13th? No, that would
No,
be that.
it would be the week of the 6th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to weigh in any more on that?
Nope, we're good.
Okay.
Go.
Fred?
Yeah. I'm a little triggered when we use the phrase, what do the people want? And with a relatively uninformed voting populace, it's always, there's several things we want, but when you add, are you willing to pay for it, that goes away. And, I would argue that people on my end of the political spectrum are often less informed and more reactionary. No effing taxes and pox on your tribe if you produce it. So I think we want less crime and more effective public safety. And so that's the thing I'm putting on the ballot, want to put on the ballot. Do you want to save for time? Do we want to be not half the number of cops that is normal for a city of our size? Do we want our prosecutors to have 250 active cases and thousands not taken to court every year? Do we not want to have treatment for homeless people, arrested people, and so on and so forth? Or do we want to solve this thing? So I think people will say, yeah, I want that. Then the question is, who else can we get to pay for it? And so on. So I think the people want what the revenue will produce. The question is, who's going to pay for it? And being a fallen race who are very self-centered, getting out your checkbook is an issue. So I would make the decision on, unless you just have a general thing, on the city's financial situation and the incredibly small probability the state will help us out, probably in the rest of my lifetime, but certainly not in this decade, so on. So the general situation, and then have the town halls on what is going on the ballot. Because that's where people need to be educated to make a rational decision. And so the policy decisions, that's ours. We're a republic, and they elect the gray-haired, or in my case, the bald-headed elders of the tribe, to make these fundamental decisions.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I guess my perspective, it's simple. I'm just trying to figure out, sort of frame the discussion so that more members of the public understand what exactly it is that's going on, what the impacts are, and why we even need to have this discussion. I think, among us, we talk a lot about last 10 years, 100 million cut, and what that looks like. But I think generally for members of the public, they don't understand that. Maybe they don't get that, and how that looks like for the services that the city provides
and should provide.
Yeah. So that's the frame that I'm coming from. Whether that's sort of in January before we put stuff on the ballot, or that's sort of after we've had the debate on whatever we decide to put on the ballot, I will. My inclination is January, but I will follow the will of the body. Susie.
Was I in the queue?
I'm asking
Everyone
everyone.
is.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you don't get to jump from this one.
Involuntarily,
I'm sorry, Felix. I was still thinking of something else. Can you come back to me?
Sure. Mick.
Thank you. I like the idea of going out to the public, but I'd like to answer the question of what's on the ballot first, if anything is on the ballot, instead of putting forth tax proposals or revenue proposals that may not be on the ballot, because I think it'd be very confusing. The administration's presentation we got has, I think, only one of the proposals we have before us is actually in that proposal, and the others aren't. So I'd either like the community discussion to be focused about what's on the ballot, or if nothing ends up on the ballot, then have the broader discussion. I think to try to have both discussions simultaneously will get confusing.
Okay, so then if I'm just understanding, because by the time that we get there, I think we will know everything that is going to be proposed to be on the ballot. If someone decides to lay on the table some tax initiative on the 14th, good luck, it's not passing. So, so I think by then we'll know sort of what is going to be proposed. So then if we just narrow the focus down to that, then you think that's probably something good.
So if you want to have town halls about what's on the ballot, great. I'm all there, I'm for it. But I don't want to have the other proposals move forward until we answer that question, I guess. So broader town halls, I'm not in favor of until we answer the question about what's going to be on the ballot.
All right, so then, because I just have a clear, crystal clear understanding. So then you're saying sort of after the 14th or 28th, whenever we vote, then do town halls. Are you saying do town halls before April?
Yes.
About whatever's on the ballot.
What's on the ballot?
Or if nothing ends up on the ballot, then we can continue with the broader discussion.
Okay, got it. I think I understand now. Thanks.
Austin?
Crystal
wants to
Oh, sorry,
Do you
Crystal.
mind? I guess I disagree with that, because one of the things that I think we constantly fight is the fact that people so often say, the assembly's already decided, why do I bother to comment? And if we're not going to give everybody this information that we've been given, so that they can help us make the decision about what goes on the ballot, then what's the point of the town hall at all? You can just send them a flyer and say this is on the ballot. But I thought the point to having this was to really have a broader community conversation about what options are out there and where would you like to see the municipality go. And if we don't have that, then we really aren't making good decisions about what we're putting on the ballot from the get-go. So anyway.
Thank you. And I guess to sort of extend on that point, sorry, Mr. Mayor, hopefully you don't mind if I parrot your words here, but sort of at that one meeting where we talked about all of the different potential revenue options, right, the mayor did make a point about, okay, before we decide what to even put on the ballot, maybe we should have a discussion with the community about those things, which I think was sort of the impetus of, okay, then we are going to have town halls, let's do this. But we could decide our intent is different now, or we want to work it a little different.
But the calendar is less than 2 weeks in reality, and I guess that's where I'm concerned. We can't have a robust conversation before the 14th, whatever the date is in January, or multiple conversations where we can introduce our values and kind of come up with, what are our values as a city, and then talk about these things in depth, because we have 2 real proposals before us that we need to consider. So I guess that's I agree with you, Crystal, but I think it's the time crunch that has me worried, that we can't fully vet the process like we want to. I was looking forward to coming into 2020 talking about all kinds of new revenue streams not being hemmed in by any proposals, but that's just not the reality. So I think I want to pause until we figure that out.
On that point, I really like the idea of a pre-mid-January town hall that talks about our fiscal situation. And indeed, if I was directing that, I would say, here are the needs in our city. Certainly crime, treatment, and homeless, and so on and so forth. If we're going to, we can get a little more efficient, but if we're going to do anything significant, there's got to be some new revenue. If you want to stay the course, fine. But here's the city's situation. No radical new income coming. We're vulnerable on several points. What do you want to do to begin to solve the problems going forward? I think that's a very good discussion. And I would encourage the administration to get some stuff out there, and some editorials in the paper about the realities of our situation. And I think that the Assembly and this administration have done some really pretty heroic things in trying to address it with limited resources. So I think the informative PR portion of that is significant, produces a basis for our decisions.
Thank you. Austin, and we'll just
Did you
keep
want to go
going in
first,
line.
Keith, since you wanted to respond maybe?
Go ahead.
Okay, well, thank you. And I actually was wondering, and since we have Dee here, where does the Assembly cross the line as far as public education of what might be going on the ballot versus advocating for what we've already decided to put on the ballot?
I think this would be educational to begin with, but it's not on the ballot yet, so it's actually not an election-related activity. But I think your purpose here would be educational.
Right. But if we've already voted to put it on the ballot and then have town halls, is that?
Yeah, then you certainly couldn't advocate without some other things happening.
Right.
But you would be saying this is the best thing in the world, yeah.
So myself, I think having the town halls before we make the decision that what goes on the ballot makes more sense to me.
Thanks. Austin?
Yeah, I agree with Mike, to keep it short.
Okay.
I think we already have sales taxes get 30-some% of the vote, and the alcohol tax almost won last time. So to me, I know we could invite 40 people to show up at a town hall, and who knows who those people are. But from sort of some statistics, I can tell what the community is more interested in. So I don't think I need that.
Thanks. John?
I think I agree with Meg too. We don't have a lot of time. We may not vote to put these things on the ballot on the 14th, but they're introduced Tuesday, so they're in play. People are talking about them already. They're getting pressed. So if we go forward and have meetings early January, we talk about the variety of revenue options. I think it confused people. Well, wait a minute, but what about these? And that's what they'll want to come looking at. Already the alcohol industry, I'm sure, is gearing up. Because for them this is very real. We haven't voted on it, but another alcohol tax is totally real to them. And the sales tax will liven up a lot of groups. So this is typical of many things. So, gosh, I wish we'd done this 6 months ago, but we are where we are. Not picking this the way it is now. So what do? Is change the conversation and just wait. If we put any of these on the ballot, then the conversation should be about those. The sales tax or the alcohol tax. If neither one gets put on the ballot, then I think the conversation, then we can start this and then discussion. But I'd expect it to be a 6 month discussion. So take time, make sure everyone's involved, and roll it out. So I'm hesitant. The question is, do we have a town hall?
Yeah, and so I'm okay with what I'm going to do after this is I'm going to summarize the 3 options that have been presented, and then I'm going to go through one more time, and then I need you guys to tell me 1, 2, 3 because I'm still not getting clear.
I'm not clear myself, so
yeah,
you're getting my message well.
Cameron.
So the question in my mind is, what's the purpose of the town hall, and why would the Assembly go out to the community to ask people what they think? And the reason we would do that is because we want their thoughts and ideas to help inform the decisions that we make. That would be the purpose of it, right? It would, and so that would have to happen prior to us making a decision about what to put on the ballot. If we went out after something was put on the ballot, our decision has already been made. Now it's in their hands. And the purpose of that would only be to inform them and provide information, which there is likely going to be a campaign and a variety of people trying to share lots of information about what there are and how they're going to work and all these kinds of things. And we can certainly do that, but I'm not sure that's necessarily our role to go out and just to be that informer. Maybe it is. But if we want public input into our decision, then we need to do that prior to making the decision. And whether that's a town hall, which I am always in favor for because I like having that, or it's some kind of survey or some kind of information gathering that will give us some information that will allow us to make an informed decision that includes the voice of the community. So if that's my opinion, if we're gonna ask people to get involved, then we need to have them get involved prior to us making a decision, so that we can hear those voices and incorporate them into the decision that we're going to make. So I haven't been very clear. I think that we need to do it before we make a decision about what's put on the ballot.
Okay, thanks.
Lots of consensus, huh?
Suzanne? Yeah.
Thanks. Well,
Poor Felix.
just real quickly, ideally, obviously, we would do both. 6 months out, we'd be having these kinds of meetings, and then after the ballot, we would, provide additional information. At this point, I think, the time frame is kind of concerning. Is it even possible, or what is possible to do?
Saying I can't do it.
You can do it.
Thank
Felix
you.
is
Thank
ready
you.
to pull the
There
trigger.
we go. See, that's the
No,
answer.
my only caveat is just the resources part, because we have other things going on. But I would support having a general meeting, or whatever you think you have the bandwidth for us to do and do well, just even for more to raise public awareness, and then also have the specific meetings to talk about what's on the ballot.
Sure.
Can I add
So-
something, Felix?
Yeah, awesome.
Just that, despite what I said, I don't really mind one way or another. And if you have the capacity and have been working on doing a town hall where you want to share the things that might be on the ballot, that's fine with me. I think that, like Meg said, I think we should not be talking, it should not be the same presentation Jason gave if those things aren't going to be proposed to be on the ballot, because that will be misleading. But otherwise, I'm fine with it.
Okay, so I'm gonna walk through the four options that we've talked about, and I'm gonna narrow it down to things that are being proposed for the ballot. Okay, so first is before we vote to put these things on the ballot. So that would be before January 14th. Second is after we vote to put these things on the ballot, but before April. And so that's more of sort of the informing the public of what we've put on the ballot. Third is after April. So that is, okay, we've made whatever decisions that we've made. Now we need to talk more sort of long term. And then fourth is going with Fred's idea of sometime in January to talk about more generally, we're not really talking about tax proposals, but talking about sort of Anchorage's fiscal situation. If I encapsulated that correctly.
Yeah, I would have said, talk about our fiscal situation, possible solutions.
Okay. All right. So primarily fiscal
Just a
situation.
point of order, that if we're going to go out and ask people to give us their thoughts prior to us making a decision about what goes on the ballot, we need to talk about our fiscal situation. We need to say,
Sure.
here's our fiscal
Yeah.
situation,
And-
here's a couple of ideas that are out there.
Yeah.
We need your
And-
thoughts about whether to put them on the ballot.
And that's what I said earlier. Okay. So I'm gonna go back through 1 through 4. I think
You just
I
want
think
a number, no commentary.
I mean, I think we did get commentary, but if you want a short commentary, sure.
Felix, can I write them on the board? I've already forgotten.
Sure.
So 1,
Yeah, so 1 is before voting to put on the ballot. 2 is after voting but before April. 3 is after April. And then 4 is, I guess 4 would be, let's not even talk about revenues. I don't know.
Well, Felix, my understanding is that Fred's idea is that that's a thought that is incorporated in whatever the presentation is for any of those.
yeah.
Sure, and yeah, maybe I didn't make that clear enough, but that would be part of the presentation for all of them.
Okay, got it,
Yeah.
yeah.
So take that
So
off,
there's really
because
just
that's
1,
just
2, 3.
Sure,
Incorporate?
then yeah,
Okay.
let's take that
Okay.
out.
Put me down for 1, please.
Oh, okay. I've got one vote.
Is this for everything or only specific things? Because these are just timing, but what is the
Right,
topic?
so in my
It's like
opinion,
broader.
yeah, so 3 is broader, 1 and 2 are what's before us.
What's
So
before us.
not
Okay.
the realm of the possible, but what is
Okay.
before us.
It's almost like the first one is feedback, the second one is education, and the last one is a broader conversation
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
long term.
And at that point, we won't know. We could have already passed something.
Yeah.
We will.
The voters could have already passed or voted, who knows what.
Yeah, it's implementation. Yeah.
So, Fred, what do you think of options 1, 2, 3?
By great politician, all three.
Should I put one down for all three?
Any of the above? Yeah.
But everyone's
That's
going to
how I
say
Oh my gosh, that's not going to help you guys. Suzanne?
I can give you my rank choice, but.
We can
Choice.
practice.
Well, I mean, I think before voting and after voting, but if there's only
Where's our
one,
consultant?
I mean, if there's only one that we can choose, then I would say number 2, but.
Are we choosing one, or should I list
So-
multiple for each person?
Well, I want to interpret you. So, what did you say 2? Then, if you had to choose
Well,
If
one.
she has to choose
If
one.
I have to choose that we can, if we can only do one of those, I would choose 2 because I think doing one before would be good, but then also afterwards, like I said in my initial comments.
You're
Yeah,
getting a
because
literal
of the
thumbs
answer.
up from Mr. Dyson.
Okay. Great.
That might indicate his vote, but apparently not.
And there's no need to put P3. No matter what happens, you're gonna meet and work on number 3.
That's true. We could.
And 1 or 2 they're not mutually
Well,
exclusive.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I guess sort of in my opinion, sort of, yes, they're not mutually exclusive, but I guess the idea is sort of, do we want to talk about stuff that might be on the ballot, or just wait until April after the ballot's voted completely and then sort of begin the discussion? I don't.
They're both really important, and yours wanting to just describe the situation we're in and possible solutions. Absolutely necessary.
So Fred's saying it can't wait, like we have to do that.
We sure can wait. We should.
Fred, do you want to vote for 1 or 2 or both or none?
If I can only do 1, it's 2.
Okay.
But we ought to do
Thank
1
you.
and 2.
Got it. Thank you. I guess
I'll
Austin.
put a little one there for
A half.
I vote for this one.
Okay. Chris.
Surprised Dana wasn't here for the conversation, but if I had to choose of those options, it would be number 2.
It's basically town hall, what should we do?
Okay. Meg.
Yeah, number 2.
Okay.
I vote for number 1.
Okay. John.
I'd vote for 1, and I got a reason for that. And one reason is because Felix said he would do the work. And
Yeah. Would you do the work on this one? That's a good.
I mean, like I said, the will of the body.
But it would be nice before we vote then to just find out where people are pushing back on these proposals, and we can perhaps tweak them on the 14th to make them more palatable to people. Because we want to hear that. And we'll hear talk radio be all over and newspaper stuff, but let's have a focus group together. And that could be very valuable. If there's some little wording on there that could be changed to make it work, let's find out before we do it.
I think I could fill Cameron's in.
Cameron.
Yeah, and I would just, one quick comment is that, also by doing a town hall or couple of town halls, we're creating some awareness around it, and it's gonna increase the number of emails we get and phone calls we get. It's gonna really allow people to give us some ideas about what we should do, so definitely the number 1. And-
I'm changing my vote from 2 to 1.
Thank you. Okay.
See this oratory?
And I haven't voted yet, and I do get a vote here. I am voting for 1.
Okay.
Sounds like a
One
from
is. That
behind.
doesn't mean we can't do 2, right, Fred?
Right.
Yeah.
Couple free throws at the end.
Another
one is
option
over
to
the top.
consider as we move forward, because I think putting revenue on the ballot is a big deal. If we do the town hall and we're getting feedback, is there possibility to have an additional meeting for public hearing?
We have the flexibility to, yeah.
I guess I just want to put that in the realm of possibility, because if we've been soliciting feedback or we're out there doing that, I think we need to provide lots of opportunities for feedback, and the timeline will be short.
Sure. Okay.
Would you like me to erase this, or does it matter?
You can erase it, yeah. Thanks, everyone. That was helpful. Good discussion.
Good idea.
Okay. All right. So next is, and I really do apologize for the other items. We're just not going to get to them today.
Not your fault.
School bonds. This one's important for me to have today because School Board President Marcette has impressed upon me that we need to clearly communicate our intent to the school board of what we plan to do with the school bonds. And I know that there are ideas, but I want to sort of be able to better communicate with her what are all the possible ideas that assembly members have. Like I said, she really did impress upon me. Better communication between the assembly and school board on this issue would be preferable. Yeah, Cameron.
My intent is to leave them as is.
Same.
I wasn't paying attention.
Do you want to do anything with school bond or leave it as is?
I want the information I asked for before I can make any kind of determination. I need the breakdown.
Okay.
That's fair.
All right. So
Very fair answer.
yeah, we have the work session. Hopefully, we'll
Yeah.
get all that. And then we can be clear at the work session how we want to move forward.
For me, my position that I've staked out is that I'm going to trust the school board's position, barring any very enlightening elements from the public hearing.
Okay. And sorry, Pete, I skipped you. Did you have anything you wanted to add on this one?
Well, I'm worried about sticker shock with a big number, but if they're gonna vote things down, then I don't know if it makes much difference whether we separate it out or not.
Thanks. Suzanne, do you want to weigh in on this one?
Same as Pete, worry about the sticker shock, but inclined to follow the recommendation of the school board.
Okay. And sorry, John, so we're talking about basically just broad concepts. What is our intent for the school bonds? Because the school board really wants us to communicate with them what it is.
They know way more than me about all that stuff. They just father.
Okay. Fred?
Yeah. Here I am, following the crowd. But my default always is to go with the people who've got skin in the game. So, same thing on local issues. Your district, unless I got huge business, I'll go with it. But they had a 4-3 vote on splitting it, and it had to do with the earthquake. And I'm reluctant to speculate on people's motives, but my guess is they were saying, the big one's in jeopardy, let's get the one that deals with the emergencies, i.e. the earthquakes, and so on and so forth. So that's a kind of a tactical thing I think they're thinking about, or were thinking about. So, yeah, so, and by the way, if we did that, our district would make out like tall dogs, and so on. So, but I don't want to be motivated by that. So I'm going to stand with what they do.
Okay. Thank you. Crystal?
Thank you, and you probably know I have a lot to say about all of this, and I'm not going to reiterate too much more than what I did at the joint school board meeting, but I will say that one thing that I think we might have thrown around a little bit, and I would probably like to see on the ordinance or on the resolution itself, is language that says the district will stay with their idea of taking a bond holiday next year, if you will, or whatever they said, making it a multi-year bond, which all bonds are multi-year because you never really know when they're going to be sold, so that's a little bit of a misleading definition, but just the idea that they will not bond again next year. And I haven't been working on that, but I am working on two other things. One of them is there to tighten up the language a little bit in the bond itself, because it talks about how the district, if any project is not done, the district can use those bonded funds for anything else they deem warranted. Now, granted, the district's got hundreds of millions of dollars worth of deferred maintenance. They always will. They have for decades. So that never changes. But I think it's really important to tell the public what they're voting on, and the expectation from the public is that if I support this, it's because I want to see these projects done. So if they don't get done, there shouldn't be language in there that says the money can be used for something else. Now, there's a qualifier to that, because Typically, when there's leftover money from a project being done, if you do windows at an elementary school and that's on the bond and you have so much money left over, you can still redirect that to windows at another school. I don't have a problem with that. But there's something in the language this time that is just a little bit broader, and I think we should tighten that up. So Dee is working with me and talking to bond counsel on that. So I'm hoping to have some kind of amendment on that topic. The other one is there is significant potential for earthquake reimbursement money from FEMA. And even though typically the school district does not like to see bonds paid off early, because it has to do with your bond rating, it has to do with the people who are buying the bonds and their investment return rates, and they like getting their expected return rate and that. But in this case, because we are actually getting money from FEMA, I think it's very important in terms of being able to sell this bond that people have an assurance that that money will pay off that debt. So we're working on that because that's also a bond counsel question as well. But to me, there's really I don't understand why there would be a difference in that anyway when what we've been doing with state reimbursement for decades. So I'm not sure why there's a disconnect with the district having a problem with FEMA money going to reimbursement rather when the state money is done that for years. So anyway, again, we're working on that. But those are at least 2 amendments that I hope to have.
Got it.
Very valid.
Okay. So then what did you want to add anything? Solar panels on roofs? Okay.
I do, and I would just kind of note that it's interesting that the municipality is taking a different approach towards reimbursement from FEMA. We have not put that on our bond package because we have a different expectation, and we hope that we do a more consistent policy between the school district and the municipality.
Explain that.
Yeah, please.
I think one of the key aspects. Sorry, Jason Bachstead, Deputy Chief of Staff to the Mayor. I think one of the things, the position that we have taken on a lot of the reimbursements is that we are not going to ask voters to reimburse us for the items that we believe are going to be paid for by FEMA as we go through this process. So it seems a little interesting that the school district is taking the opposite approach, which is we're going to ask voters for potentially $30 million in money that we think and hopefully will believe that FEMA is actually going to reimburse us for.
Exactly right.
That seems counterintuitive to the position that we are taking on the municipality side and what the ASD is doing.
And if I may.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I think that a legitimate concern, they're asking for the total on the bond package, and then they get the FEMA money. What happens to that extra money? And that's a part of, I think, what Crystal's thing is. All of a sudden, if Santa Claus drops $30 million in reimbursement, where does that money go? And that's a legitimate concern, because there's been great flexibility to say, oh, this stuff came down the chimney, we can go spend it on other things. But
Sure. And Crystal, did you want to add anything?
Well, no, I appreciate that, because what that means is the municipality is not asking the voters to front that money.
But we're taking a fiscally conservative approach.
So see, and that
Fred
makes
has
sense to
warned
me.
on
We're gonna be a
one
little-
thing.
sorry.
25 years, Fred Dice.
Move to extend for 5 more minutes, and then we have to go to our party.
Okay. Any opposition? No? Okay, thanks.
But-
Did you have anything else besides that?
I do, but Pete was in front of me.
Okay, sure, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And a thing we have to keep in mind is if we accept that money from FEMA, we might have to pay earthquake insurance,
Well,
depending on what the application is.
some of that's contingent upon, if I could, through the chair, some of that's contingent upon what the state decides to do, whether that kind of insurance is available, and it is not at all clear that we would be required to pursue that kind of insurance.
And can I add to that too, please? And the other component is what the district decides to do in their seismic upgrades too. So if they already meet a threshold that they say, okay, you're already good, then they're not going to require insurance. So there's about, I think, 26 different levels so that the district's having to meet requirements for in order to even be eligible for some of that reimbursement. So.
last comment, Austin.
So my question is, if they didn't put the FEMA stuff on the bond and FEMA doesn't come through, what do we do? What,
You're still gonna bond.
could you
eventually.
bond for it the next year, or? Yeah, so then why is it on there? You
Well,
don't
they
understand
wanna-
my question, or you don't
Yeah,
understand why
I
it's
don't
on there?
understand your question.
Well, my question is, so you can either bond for it or not bond for it, but we don't know if we're, for the FEMA money, but we don't know if we're getting it. So if we bond for it, am I now getting confused?
Now, we're bonding for the repairs. We're bonding for
Well,
the
yeah,
cost of the
right.
repairs.
My
We're only
words aren't correct,
hoping-
but same
Yeah,
meaning.
we're only
Yeah.
hoping that there's reimbursement coming, when typically we would get reimbursement from the state. But
Yeah.
in this particular situation, because these qualify for FEMA funds, we hope
Are you
to
talking
get
to me?
reimbursed.
I get it, yeah.
Okay,
I
sorry.
think I'm just using the wrong words. So,
Yeah.
but if we don't put those things that we expect FEMA reimbursement for on the bond, and we don't get FEMA reimbursement, but we still need to make the repairs, could we bond it in the following year?
Good, if they want
Therefore-
to start now, work.
Right, so.
So you're saying if it doesn't
I think that
Yeah.
really, to me, how does that all work
Sure.
is the answer.
Just
Okay,
it's
so then I think I have what I need to share with the school board. Thanks,
Just
everyone.
one more point to make on that too is that apparently the state is looking at a supplemental appropriation that would cover not only recouping some of the costs of the fires, but also could extend to earthquake costs. And I don't know, have any idea what they put in the supplemental, but that is something that typically.
I have
Thank
a
you.
question for the work session.
Sure.
Is there a time, so there are a lot of schools listed for earthquake repair. Some of them are back up and running. Is there a time limit in which we have to get that work done in order to remain FEMA eligible or not? Because that's
think
the
they said
question.
3 years at the.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be this year.
It doesn't.
Okay,
Yeah, and that's
Right.
why I think we're all starting.
Okay. Chris,
So,
and then I
yeah,
have to move
the
on.
mayor just raised a very interesting point. If the legislature is contemplating supplemental, and the supplemental may cover expenses for schools, but we put those expenses into a bond proposal, would that then lead the legislature to say, well, we don't need to think about that? And put that on a burden on us, the taxpayer, when it could actually be somewhere else. And so that is evidence towards a question of contemplating a different strategy, but worthy of hearing from the school board.
Okay.
Very
Got
good
it.
point.
All right, thanks. Good discussion, guys. So, moving on. Can we get a? Oh, sure.
I just want to let everybody know that Tom Roth is putting together a walkthrough with the engineers and designers of Greening Middle School, so you'll be getting an invitation to potentially participate and go check that out if you'd like to.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to walk through our last item of King of the Lights. Thanks. And then we'll do audience participation, and then we will move on and party. So this is the formatted version. I think there might be some tweaks still happening to it, but formatted version of the assembly priorities as we have discussed. So I'll just sort of scroll through so you guys can see what they look like. And this document will be emailed to you hopefully later today so that you guys can review and provide any edits that you may have for graphic desires. And then this will be before us as an S version on Tuesday. So I really want to thank Amy Solberg of the clerk's office, and then Barbara and Judy, my staff, for all their help with this. With that, we'll go ahead and open it up to audience participation. Did you want to? No? Okay. Did anyone else want to participate? Did you want to?
So Beth Norland with the Anchorage Park Foundation. We're really interested in you considering a resolution that you have a draft of in front of you. I don't know what your timetable might be on that, but we are applying for grants every week that has to do with some part of some of the things that are in this resolution to make Anchorage a more walkable, wheelchair rollable, and connected city to improve our quality of life. we're calling that Connect Anchorage, and there's a lot involved in that, and even it relates to climate change, which is another thing on your list. So hoping you take it up. Don't know what your calendar would be on that.
Thank you. Any other audience participation? Okay, seeing none, meeting's adjourned.